My best friend's son made a mistake. I allowed him to have another go, a true infidelity story. His initial attempt was clumsy, misaligned, rushed, and filled with uncertainty. His breath hitched, and so did mine. I took hold of his wrist, offering a gentle steadiness. He stood still, trembling, his eyes wide as if he believed he had shattered it all. Apologies, but his voice began to crack. I held on tightly. I remained utterly still, not a single eyelash fluttering. It's all right, I murmured, steering him once more. Simply more gradual. He made adjustments with great care this time, each movement deep and deliberate. My back curved against the edge of the guest bed as I fought to suppress any sound of distress. His hands clutched the mattress next to me, knuckles white with the effort of holding back. He moved as if he were deciphering me, as though he had rehearsed this in his mind for an eternity, yet never anticipated the chance to experience it firsthand. As he shivered once more, I drew him nearer, unable to feign indifference to my desire for him any longer. Not after all we had endured to reach this point. Never did I envision that I would tread beyond this boundary. I am 43 years old and have been divorced for 6 years. My home is a solitary space, shared only with my dog and the occasional presence of my best friend's son, who takes refuge in the spare bedroom as he navigates the final stages of his graduate studies. He is 24 years old. I once cradled him in my arms, a small tempest of emotions, as he unleashed his frustrations in the hallway. Before prom, I showed him the art of tying a tie. I observed him weep as his father departed, while I remained by his mother's side, my dearest companion, as she slowly mended her shattered self. So, no, I never imagined I would find myself on my back, legs entwined around him, softly murmuring his name as if it were a forbidden secret meant to be kept in the shadows. How would you respond if, one evening, your best friend's son approached you with a tentative reach, his hands trembling with the weight of his caution, and pressed his lips to yours in a moment that felt both fragile and profound? How would you respond if he stumbled initially and silently pleaded for an opportunity to improve? Would you allow him another chance? I did, and everything has changed since then, for it was not merely about his feelings. It wasn't merely the way his lips traced a path along my neck, nor the way he nestled his face into my shoulder afterward. It was in the way he gazed at me, as if I transcended the roles of mother, best friend, or the constraints of age and propriety. He regarded me as if I were a woman worthy of desire. Even now, hours later, I find myself trembling, for there is no turning back. Before we embark on this journey, I invite you to pause and consider liking and subscribing. Make an effort to immerse yourself in the video for as long as you can. As you engage with the content more often, YouTube will extend its reach, presenting these narratives to a broader audience. This, in turn, will foster the channel's growth and offer you an abundance of content to savor. Let us embark on this journey without delay. It began well before that fateful night, long before either of us dared to confess our truths. It was late spring when I first truly saw him again, not as the child I once babysat, nor merely as my best friend's son, but as something entirely different. He had recently returned from campus, claiming that the city had drained his energy. I extended the invitation to the guest room with ease, assuring his mother that I was more than willing to assist until he secured a place of his own. He carried his belongings in with a quiet demeanor, exuding gratitude and politeness. "Don't worry," he said that first night, pulling his duffel down the hallway. "I won't be in your way." A smile graced my lips. "You have never been a source of trouble, Liam." Yet, there was a fleeting glimmer in his expression, as if he yearned to be. Initially, I dismissed it. In all honesty, I had become accustomed to the shadows of invisibility. Following my divorce, inquiries about my well-being dwindled to a halt. My friends have become preoccupied, and my former partner has tied the knot again. My children came to see me whenever they had the chance. Yet the house had become excessively silent, overly tidy, too uninhabited. Liam's presence infused the space with sound once more, his shoes tapping in the hallway, the rich timbre of his laughter resonating from the living room, and the remnants of late-night cereal bowls left to linger in the sink. For weeks, it remained merely a gentle, welcoming presence in a home that had lingered in the stillness of a museum for far too long. Yet he observed details, surpassing the awareness of many. "You always prepare in excess," he remarked one evening. I let my shoulders drop in a casual gesture. Time-worn practice die and days gone by, I prepared meals for a party of 4. Without uttering a word, he carried his plate to the sink, then softly took mine from my grasp and began rinsing it. On yet another night, I found myself confessing that sleep had eluded me. "You always keep the porch light on," he remarked. "Perhaps it would be wise to switch it off. It disrupts your natural sleep-wake cycle." My gaze was fixed upon him. "Your voice echoes that of your mother." He offered a faint smile. "She claims my voice resembles yours." That one found its way to an unexpected destination. Changes unfolded slowly in the aftermath. I in the kitchen. I would discover him, shirtless and barefoot, rubbing his eyes as he awaited the completion of the coffee brewing. I promised myself I wouldn't glance back, yet I consistently found myself doing so. He would remain present as I spoke, observe me intently as I chuckle. The mere brush of his fingers against my arm would linger in my mind for hours to come, yet I refrained from allowing myself to venture into that realm. On a late June night, he returned home later than usual, his frustration palpable. As I sat at the dining table, folding laundry late into the night, all was well. He sank into the chair opposite me, his hand moving to massage the back of his neck. I received a job offer, but I chose to decline it. Why did I not wish to depart just yet? I placed the towel gently on the surface. "Liam, don't linger here for my sake. I'm not," he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet I find myself reluctant to leave. I experienced that sensation deeply, acute and profound, excessively personal. He stood, elongated and poised. "You look tired," he remarked, as if attempting to retreat into a more secure realm. "It is time for you to retire for the night." I acknowledged with a nod, yet remained still. Nor did he. It was not about the words he spoke. Not quite. He lingered in silence, allowing the moment to stretch, making me acutely aware of his gaze upon me. That night, I nestled into bed, holding a pillow tightly against my chest. My heart raced as if I had just sprinted a mile. The guilt crept in long before any event unfolded. That was the moment I realized this was more than mere curiosity or a fleeting crush I could brush aside. In a whirlwind of self-doubt, I scrutinized each outfit, dodging his gaze as he entered the room clad only in his skin, meticulously scheduling my showers to ensure they never coincided with his. Yet, it proved futile, for he persistently observed my presence, and I found myself yearning for recognition. To emerge from the shadows after a prolonged absence is a perilous endeavor. A yearning begins to stir within you. One begins to rely on it, even when you are fully aware that it is the most unfavorable outcome. Particularly at that moment, it arrived with a whisper, almost imperceptibly. We sat together on the couch, engrossed in a mindless show that neither of us was truly invested in. My legs were curled beneath me. His limbs were extended. A commercial played in the background. I turned to pose a question, only to find him already gazing in my direction. Our faces hovered in proximity. Neither of us stirred. His gaze fell to my lips. And in that moment, something delicate, ancient, and taboo shattered between us. Yet we remained untouched. Not at that moment. I lay down to sleep, tears slipping silently beneath the pillow, for I understood that this was not destined to fade into oblivion. Following that night on the couch, everything transformed. Yet silence reigned. We began to maintain a distance, as if it were sacred. Refrain from brushing against arms in the kitchen. There shall be no sitting side by side upon the couch. Yet, the void only deepened the ache. Each moment of quiet seemed heavy with meaning. Each communal space resonated with an unspoken tension that lingered in the air. He was aware of it, that I had a feeling about it. I recall a morning when I had just emerged from the shower, a towel snugly wrapped around me. I emerged from the bathroom, and there he was in the hallway, barefoot, cradling a cup of coffee in his hands. We stood still, caught in a moment of suspended time. For a fleeting moment, his gaze fell, only to dart away quickly, his cheeks flushed with a deep crimson. "I apologize," he uttered a low murmur, yet he chose to stay. He remained motionless, as if a thought lingered on the tip of his tongue, yet remained unspoken. I secured the towel around myself and strode past him, yet his gaze lingered, a palpable presence that followed me back to my room. Surprisingly, I found no disdain for it. As the week progressed, I found myself reaching for the lip balm thrice before the evening meal. Not lipstick, merely a whisper of something delicate. I removed it twice, then reapplied it. He observed. Naturally, he did. "Your lips look different tonight," he remarked, as I passed him a bowl of roasted potatoes. My eyelids fluttered momentarily. Did I ask that so? He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on me longer than was necessary. Indeed, silence enveloped us for the remainder of the meal. On the following night, the situation escalated. Our hands converged upon the same dish towel. My hand rested upon his, a comforting warmth radiating from our touch, steady and reassuring. I ought to have distanced myself. He ought to have as well. Yet, we remained still. When I finally raised my gaze, I found him observing me, an inscrutable expression etched upon his features. His thumb grazed the side of my finger, gentle and uncertain. I drew in a breath and grasped the towel. "Good night," I uttered in haste. "Night," he murmured, his voice barely rising above a whisper. I found myself unable to embrace the solace of sleep. I lay there, eyes wide, recalling the warmth of his hand, the ease of it, as if we had shared that moment countless times before. The boundary had vanished, not yet traversed, yet departed, and that was nearly more unbearable. The following afternoon, as I tended to the hedges outside, a sudden twist led to an unwelcome strain in my lower back. I hurled the shears to the ground in frustration and attempted to elongate it. Liam emerged moments later. "Are you all right?" he inquired, making his way over with a light jog. "Only my back," that I flinched. I turned with too much haste. "Please take a seat." He led me to the porch bench, kneeling before me, his hand resting softly against my lower back. I recoiled, yet it was not from agony. His hands exuded warmth, strength, and a gentle touch that left me momentarily breathless. "I end this moment?" he inquired. I inclined my head in agreement. He began to trace gentle circles, applying just the right amount of pressure. Not unsuitable. Not at this moment. Yet with each stroke of his hand, my spine resonated with an electric pulse. I reclined just a bit. My shirt had slipped upward, and his hand brushed against my skin. Unadorned flesh. He remained close. I sensed his fingers hesitate, then resume their movement with a deliberate slowness. As I gazed down at him, he met my eyes with his own, and there it stood, unmistakable, desire. The sort that had been dwelling in the space between us for weeks, perhaps even longer. "Liam," I murmured softly. He rose gradually to his feet. Near, excessively near. "You keep looking at me as if I'm not meant to notice," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet I truly do, that I chose not to respond, for there remained no words to utter. That evening, we found ourselves perched on opposite ends of the couch. The television remained aglow, distraction from noise. Yet with each movement I made, I sensed his gaze upon me. As I rose to ascend the stairs, he trailed behind me. We were both aware. As I arrived at the hallway, I came to a halt at the base of the stairs. He came to a halt just behind me. Untouched. Silence prevails. Simply, inhale, exhale, weighty, irregular. I am unable to do that. I have embarked on my journey. However, I did not complete it. He was positioned behind me, and I could sense his warmth enveloping me, even in the absence of touch. I pivoted with deliberate slowness, our faces almost grazing each other. Not a single one of us stirred. Our breaths intertwined. His chest heaved with an alarming quickness. My hands trembled with an unsteady rhythm. His gaze darted back to my lips once more. I shut mine, yet I remained still, and that conveyed it all. The atmosphere surrounding us crackled with intensity. yet excruciatingly silent. I ought to have pivoted and descended the stairs. He should have been left standing there. However, I chose not to. Time stretched before me as I lingered in anticipation. As he leaned in, slow and hesitant, his breath brushed softly against my cheek. I found myself not wanting to stop him. His lips brushed against mine, as if seeking an answer. Gentle, almost non-existent. Yet, I responded regardless. I embraced it fully. Reclined against the surface, IT unfolded with a sense of calm and intention. It quivered with uncertainty. His hands hovered at my hips, tentative, as if seeking permission even in this moment. I shut my eyes, allowing my body to articulate the words I could not express. He kissed me with a depth and slowness that made my knees tremble, threatening to give way beneath me. I clutched his shirt, anchoring myself to remain steady, in the space that lay between the hallway and my bedroom. My breath hitched in my throat. I found my voice barely escaping my lips, a whisper of his name, frayed and shattered, as if it were a secret too precious to be spoken aloud. For the simple reason that it was stuck, he paused at the threshold. "Do you truly believe that?" he inquired, his voice trembling. I gazed up at him, this boy, whom I had known since his earliest days. Here stood a man who was acutely aware of the question he posed. Fear flickered in his eyes, a silent testament to the turmoil within. Not to inflict pain upon me, of traversing a boundary from which he could not turn back. I ought to have declined, and I responded affirmatively through my very being instead. Within the confines of the room, I led him onward. My fingers curled into his back as he leaned over me, a blend of hesitation and respect in his demeanor. The manner in which he moved, deliberate and slightly unsteady, initially revealed to me that this was no mere game for him. This was not an act he had repeated 100 times before. His breath faltered as he ventured within for the first time. Exceedingly swift, excessively profound. He stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief, and he began in a state of panic. Yet, I gently placed my hand on the nape of his neck and murmured, "It's okay." Give it another shot. He withdrew just a touch, made adjustments and attempted once more, this time at a more measured pace. More stable, a shattered sigh escaped my lungs, leaving the air around me heavy with unspoken words. His skin radiated warmth, enveloping me in a gentle embrace. Each movement of his body stirred emotions within me that had long been dormant. Not desire, not even affection, yet something weightier, desire. Yearning for a sense of belonging. Moved, observed. He pressed his face against the side of my neck, as if he were struggling to grasp the reality of the moment. As if he wished to conceal his face from my gaze while he shook with unease. And I allowed him to proceed. I kept him close, right there. His weight bore down upon me. Our breaths drift apart, no longer in harmony. The quietude that lingered between us spoke volumes, far beyond what either of us could articulate. The whisper of his voice, soft and intimate, brushed against my skin, unraveling me completely. His rhythm faltered with uncertainty. His fingers gripped the sheets tightly, as if seeking something to ground him. He decelerated, then hesitated further, as if reluctant to hasten the moment. That moment. It felt anything but a mistake. It seemed as though we had been journeying toward this moment for an eternity, even as the guilt seared within my chest. Even as I sensed, deep within, that this would forever linger with us. In the aftermath, he lingered nearby, remained silent. He simply lay there beside me, one hand gently resting on my hip, as if uncertain whether he had permission to hold on. I glanced over at him. His eyes remained shut, yet his brow was furrowed with tension, filled with concern. "This wasn't part of my plan," he remarked. At last, my voice is hoarse. "I assure you, I did not." I am aware that I spoke in hushed tones. He cast his gaze in my direction. From the very beginning, I longed to reach out to you, even before I understood the depth of that desire. That truly sounds dreadful, I understand. Yet I truly mean it. Words eluded me, for deep within a section of my being that I had long kept hidden, there lay a yearning to be touched. By no one at all, by him, that filled me with a fear unlike any other. I lifted my hand, gently sweeping a lock of hair away from his brow. "It is beyond our power to reverse it," I remarked. He remained silent. He simply reclined in silence, gasping for air. His eyes were wide, as if he were still trying to grasp the reality of what had just unfolded. His presence lingered in every corner of my mind. The heft of his presence, the comfort of his embrace. His tremors were palpable. In that moment, as he stepped out of the room, I realized that everything was about to change forever. Never in my existence. Not within his. Not in the quiet we must bear now. The door whispered shut as he stepped out of the room. In the quiet hours before dawn breaks. Prior to the clamor, the gentle thud of his footsteps echoed softly as he descended the stairs. The front door let out a soft creak. The soft click resonated as it closed behind him, and then solitude enveloped me. The sheets retained a lingering warmth from his presence. The fabric of my robe drapes effortlessly over my shoulders. The atmosphere in the room was dense, laden with the weight of our actions. I rose gradually, each muscle protesting with a dull ache. Not from the deed alone, but from the profound significance it carried. I imagined it would be akin to a dreamlike experience, a fleeting thought I could wash away beneath the cascade of water. Yet it trailed behind me, step into the bathroom, step into the kitchen. Upon my skin, out of habit, I brewed coffee and poured it into 2 mugs. As the truth settled in that he would not be returning in the near future, I let one slip down the sink. It wasn't until the late hours of that afternoon that I finally caught sight of him. As I busily wiped down the counter, he made his entrance. The hoodie sat low, framing his face as he tucked his hands into the comforting embrace of his pockets. He averted his gaze initially. "Hello." He uttered a soft command for silence. "Hello." He lingered by the fridge, made no effort to open it. We both spoke of last night in unison. He released a laugh tinged with nervousness. I did not. I was unable to. He dragged his hand wearily across his face. "I have no regrets," he stated. "I am unable to do that." I shook my head, but not in dissent. Merely standing at the crossroads of uncertainty, unsure of the next step to take. "I do," I replied, "but I do not." What could possibly be more dire? He advanced a step, only to halt in his tracks. "I keep seeing your face," he said, his voice trembling. "Your gaze upon me just moments ago was captivating." It was not incorrect. It felt entirely right. That is the aspect that fills me with trepidation. He nodded with a deliberate slowness, his eyes shimmering with a distant glaze. "Do you believe she would despise us?" He referred to his mother as my closest companion. I chose to remain silent, for I had already known. The remainder of the day unfolded in disjointed pieces. My mind wandered, eluding any semblance of concentration. Not the laundry, not messages, not the preparation for dinner. As I stood at the sink, my gaze drifted out the window, lost in thought, clutching a soiled plate, as if the purpose of it had slipped my mind. I realized I ought to have urged him to go, on that particular night, the following day. Yet I refrained. To send him away felt akin to declaring that I no longer required his presence. Yet I found myself not being. In the stillness of that night, silence enveloped us. He remained in the confines of his room. I remained in my own. Yet, as the clock struck midnight, I caught the sound of his door slowly creaking open, then shut once more. Gentle footsteps echoed softly along the corridor, and then silence reigned. I remained nestled in the warmth of my sheets. I did not reach out to him, yet my hand remained clenched within the folds of the blankets, holding on tightly. It felt as though I was restraining my deepest desires, exerted every bit of energy. The subsequent days merged into one another, indistinguishable and seamless. He lingered outside longer. I kept myself occupied. As we crossed paths in the corridor, we exchanged courteous nods and soft greetings, as if we hadn't unraveled one another in my bed just days prior. Yet each look seared into my soul, each silence elongated. It was on a fateful night that I stumbled upon him in the laundry room, leaning against the dryer, arms crossed, eyes a mystery. "I'm losing my mind," he remarked. I chose to remain silent, and I considered that perhaps if we simply behaved as we usually do, it might eventually diminish. And has it? I inquired. He let out a single laugh, acidic. Far from it. I inhaled deeply. This cannot continue. Eventually, the truth will come to light. His expression fell. Is that truly your only concern? No, I murmured. I fear that I may lose concern over who discovers the truth. He advanced, only to pause abruptly. Share your desires, and I shall depart. I shall take my leave. At this very moment, I gazed upon him, this man who seemed far too young, excessively acquainted, exceedingly restricted, and I felt compelled to express it. Yet I found myself unable to do so, for when I spoke it, it transformed into reality, and I averted my gaze. He exited the room in silence, leaving no further words behind. The ensuing silence hung heavy in the air, a palpable weight that felt akin to punishment. 2 weeks passed before my best friend arrived unexpectedly. The entryway remained untouched, a testament to my hurried pace. I opened the door, and she embraced me as if time had stood still. As if I weren't clutching a secret capable of unraveling everything between us. He hasn't called me in days, she remarked, entering without a hint of hesitation or a request for permission. He just sent a message saying he's been occupied. You're familiar with his tendencies. I nodded with caution, apprehensive of what lay ahead. She let her purse fall onto the kitchen table, just as she had done in the past before her second marriage and the move that took her 3 hours away. I wondered if perhaps he was sinking back into a state of despair. Alternatively, I'm uncertain. Is all well in this place? I cast my gaze down the corridor, directing it toward his chamber. The door stood shut, a sliver of light spilling out from beneath it. He's perfectly well, I murmured gently, simply unraveling the complexities. Her gaze sharpened. Are you certain that I swallowed? Optimistic. We engaged in light conversation over tea. She shared with me the details of her new job, her stepson, and the renovations she wished she had never begun. I chuckled at all the appropriate times, yet my insides contorted with each utterance. She surveyed the house, her gaze drifting over the couch, the kitchen, and the hallway. This place remains exactly the same, she remarked. I wish to express that I, too, have not. Yet, that was no longer the case. After she departed that evening, I rapped on Liam's door. He remained silent. I twisted the knob and discovered him sprawled on his back, his gaze fixed on the ceiling above. She arrived, I remarked. He averted his gaze from me. I have heard. She longs for your presence, and I am aware. I entered the room and settled onto the edge of the bed. He remained motionless, I confessed to her, my voice barely above a whisper. Not through language, merely alongside all the other matters. Our gazes intertwined. Crimson-edged. Exhaustion weighs heavily upon me. I can't bear another falsehood, he declared. It doesn't resonate with me. You wish for me to convey to her. No, he replied, sitting up straight. Please, I need you to set me free. My breath caught in my throat. He stated what was necessary for me to leave, secure a space of my own, determine the course of my actions. I blinked. Do you believe that will simplify things? He smiled, yet the expression held no trace of joy. It shall render it feasible. We lingered in quietude. I felt an overwhelming urge to cry out, to plead, to implore him to remain just a moment longer, until I could find my breath again, without the necessity of seeing him first. Yet I did not, for he was indeed correct. This was not love. Not quite. It was an experience that delved into depths unknown, possessing a duality of both creation and destruction. I can't help but think of you, he confessed. I am aware. He extended his hand, brushing against mine with a soft touch. This lingers, doesn't it? No, I replied. Perhaps we find ways to navigate our existence alongside. By the time I opened my eyes the following morning, he had already slipped away, as if it were the very first moment. This time, it was irrevocable. I lingered in the threshold of the guest room, the closet bare, its sheets stripped away. IT appeared as though he had never set foot in that place. Yet, his presence lingered in the air around me. Within the stillness, and every breath I took, the air was filled with meaning. My closest companion remained blissfully unaware, or if she had, the words never escaped her lips. Our conversations continued, reduced in quantity, yet sufficient to maintain the facade that nothing has shattered in our connection. Liam failed to make the call, have yet to put pen to paper. I silenced his name on my lips, yet it lingered persistently in my thoughts. At times, I find myself at the sink, lost in thoughts of his breath brushing softly against my neck. His hands trembled as I led him once more. I refrained from intervening, not out of weakness, but because my desire ran deeper than I was willing to acknowledge. I have traversed a boundary that cannot be undone. Yet, for a fleeting evening, I rediscovered the essence of womanhood within me.